You see, my problem is that I take everything way too personally, right? Like, the only way I can make sense of a thing is by internalizing it. So every single microaggression I experience feels like an affront to my entire ideology. And every time I make eye contact with a relatively attractive person in their 20s, I picture what kind of kids we'd adopt together. And anytime anyone's experiencing any kind of problems, I automatically assume it has something to do with me. Always me. It's like narcissism without the perks of the self-esteem. So with everything going on right now, and I'm not just talking about like on the news in the rest of the world. I mean, like even in my own circle with my friends and family. Have you met? I don't know if you've met my brother George, but I went and visited him yesterday, and he's a little on the spectrum, but he loves to give play-by-plays. He remembers every single detail about every interaction he's had that week, and he gives it to you like a sales pitch. He's excruciatingly specific, always has been. And you sit there and you nod, and you're like, oh, well, that's interesting, George, because that's just what our family's always done. But yesterday he tells me this story that I can't stop thinking about, and he says he was out on the beach, heading south along the water, and he sees this thing, this brown thing, on the sand ahead of him, and he gets closer to it, and he sees that it's one half of a deer. It had been cut across the torso. The bottom half was nowhere to be seen. And the blood was drifting out into the waves. And he's so specific about it. He says it doesn't look like a bite. It looks like a clean cut, like a laser had sliced through it, but he said there was no singeing or signs of burns. And he approaches it, and somehow it's still alive. And it looks up at him. This one half of a deer stares at him. As he says it didn't look like it was in pain or in anguish. It wasn't crying out. It just stared at him, as he described, inquisitively. And he stares back for a minute, and he says he calls 911, but he can't hear because the ocean sound in it. So he goes back over the dunes where there's less wind, and they tell him they can't do anything with it. He should call animal services. So he calls animal services, and they say they'll send someone there. And he heads back over the dunes, and the deer is gone, vanished, and what remains of the blood is being washed out to sea. I don't know why he'd make up a story like that. Like, I've known my brother all his life. He's never lied. He's never embellished the truth. He doesn't have a sense of humor, so he wasn't trying to be funny. He doesn't have an ego. He wasn't trying to seem more interesting. And I know it wasn't true, not just because of the deer, but because, I don't know if you know this about my brother, he's a paraplegic. He's been in the same wheelchair for 7 years. How the hell did he get onto the beach? I could have called him on it right there, but I didn't. I nodded and said, wow, George, that's interesting, because that's just what our family's always done. But I couldn't stop thinking about it on the drive home. So I stopped at the beach access, the one at 103rd, which is the only beach access my brother and I have ever been to when we were growing up. And there are steps. There's these steep stone steps, about 10 feet up, leading up to over the dunes. The only other beach access around that area is 2 blocks down, and that one you have to cut through a thick patch of forestry and the steepest incline to a boardwalk you've ever seen. Why would he lie? So I'm out there on the beach, and there's no sign of a deer. There's no blood. There's definitely no wheelchair tracks. And I'm standing there, staring at nothing, trying to figure out why he would say this horrible thing. Like, what if was it some sort of like cry for help? If so, why would he suddenly get so allegorical? He's never been like that. If he's got a problem, he'll tell it to you straight, like straight to your face. Was it some sort of political statement? Like, is the deer supposed to represent the environment or something? Like being left abandoned with no hope of recovery? Or is the deer supposed to represent America divided by political polarization and waiting to fester disease? I don't think that's the case. Because I know my brother. And even though I knew it wasn't true, I had to find out. So I called Animal Services, and I asked, like, hey, were there any deer-related incidents on the beach? And they say that they can't give out information because, I don't know, apparently dead armadillos on the side of the road have some sort of confidentiality agreement or something. But now I'm furious, and I'm standing there holding my phone, swearing on the beach, looking like a crazy person. Because now I'm realizing that my brother hasn't told anyone else. He's just told me. And it's me. So I have to now assume that it has something to do with me. So what did I do? Am I the deer? Or am I the guy standing there staring at the deer? Because that's what I feel like. I feel like I'm standing there staring at the goddamn one half of a deer. Which is, the more I think about it, so horrible because you can't do anything. It's just looking at you like, what's going on? And you're like, I don't know how you got here. And I don't know what you want me to do. Do you want me to push you into the ocean or drag you back up to the dunes? Do you want me to snap your neck right here? Or do you want me to pet the back of your head until you walk quietly into that good night? I don't know what you want, and you can't tell me what you want because you're a deer. And all I can do is stand there and tear myself apart, trying to make sense of it.